Ride on. Ride on.
Hello, it's Kristen Armstrong, and welcome to this special episode of the podcast in conjunction with the new Olympic Virtual Series. Our podcast team has the opportunity over the next several weeks to bring you stories from Olympians themselves, both former and those competing in Tokyo. So let's get to it. I would like to describe today's guest as an Olympic phenom, record-breaking, history-making, hat-trick performing, and pretty much an overall amazing person both on and off the bike. She is described often as gritty, passionate, and talented, one of the most iconic names in Canadian sport, in both summer and winter events. She is the only Canadian athlete to compete in 3 different Olympics in 3 different sports: alpine, ski cross, and now track cycling, often referred to as a triple sport Olympian. So without further ado, I want to welcome everyone to bronze medalist and 3-time, soon-to-be 4-time Olympian Georgia Simmerling to our podcast today. Welcome, Georgia.
Thanks, Kristen. Wow, what an intro.
Oh, I mean, you it's well-deserved. You know, I am super excited to be here with you today. We're part of the Olympic Virtual Series, and I mean, this is going to be the first time that ordinary people are able to take part in an Olympic event. I mean, how cool is that?
I think it's amazing. I mean, just connecting with Olympic athletes, hearing their stories, riding with them. I mean, what a cool opportunity. And I mean, it's for everyone to join. So I'm expecting, thousands of people.
Yeah, you mentioned bringing people together. And this is actually, if you think about it, you've competed in 3 different disciplines. So let's just talk about the disciplines within cycling and how this is actually a coming together of all disciplines. I mean, you think about track cycling, BMX, you talk about road, you talk about mountain biking. How often do the disciplines get to also come together and be one?
I think it's really amazing. I mean, the platform is unbelievable to do just that and bring people together, especially in the times that we're in and we have been in for so long. The last, I think it's, well over a year now that we've really gone through quite a hit as a world. And I mean, even in cycling at the Olympic Games, there's 5 sports. You have para, track, road, BMX, mountain biking, and it's. I think it's so cool to have all those athletes come together. If they were to ride together on the platform, and then the fans of all those athletes to hear about different stories and maybe a different sport that you're not as interested in. I think it's just going to really create a much larger sense of community as a whole in the sport of cycling.
Yeah, I think that you have some good points there as far as bringing people together. I know that as a former Olympian myself, or I guess you're always Olympian once you're an Olympian.
I think you have a few more accolades.
The Olympic Virtual Series. The Olympic Virtual Series, it's doing just that. It's bringing fans and athletes closer than ever. Now fans are going to be able to actually take part in group rides with athletes and interact with them directly. Let's talk real quickly about how this is compared to when you're virtual versus in real life environment, because oftentimes I think that as an athlete we're protected from our fans, from community, and so how is this going to really boost that interaction and really getting to know you as an athlete?
I think it's amazing for the athletes platform, as well as I think it's just going to further enhance that connection and connectivity from athlete to fan. So hopefully we can really get back to the way things were or closer to in months to come. And, hopefully that will draw more fans out to cycling, to women's cycling events, to and to all those platforms and all those sporting events in the real world. So maybe more people are going to come out to a track race and show up to a women's mountain biking event. And I think that is really going to, or this Olympic virtual platform is really going to enhance that.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that just introducing more people to our sport is just an amazing opportunity for everyone involved. You know, for most of us, this will be the first time that we're able to take part in an Olympic event. And so what I want to do today is I want to speak with you and hear more about your adventures and your journeys and your Olympic experiences. And let's share a little bit about Georgia. And I'm going to first ask you, what was your entryway? I mean, what was your entry pathway into sport, and how did you first get involved?
What a question. I think it's pretty simple, really. I come from a very athletic and sports-driven family. I have 3 older brothers. I'm the youngest of 4, so I really grew up being chased by my brothers and trying to chase them and keep up with them at a very, very young age. And I think that really instilled this competitive adrenaline, kind of determination just to really keep up with them and want to play. So, I mean, at a young age, I remember I think asking my brothers, they were playing outside, playing hockey, and I said, hey, can I play? And they're like, yeah, if you want to play, go in net. And they just started like firing pucks at me, and I'm like, this isn't as fun as I was anticipating. But if I wanted to play, that was my job. I had to be goalie. And as a family of 6, you know, with my parents, I think I was ripping down double black diamonds at Whistler at the age of 4, you know, and that's what we were doing. So I just kind of had to keep up with the fam. I think that really, just really instilled this very competitiveness and the desire to be the best, really, and to be the best that I can be at a young age. And that was sports. I mean, my parents didn't push sports on us, but it was very clear that I wanted to be, I wanted to do everything that related to sports. And I played many sports as a kid, and had to make some tough decisions when I was about 14, and ski racing was going to be my path to hopefully become an Olympian one day, and had to kind of quit those other sports, soccer, baseball, softball, field hockey, you name it. And I was pretty excited about kind of taking that challenge on as a young teenager.
You know, Georgia, your story is so impactful, and it's even made myself just really think, and I have so many questions today. You're just such an inspiring role model, and participants in the Olympic Virtual Series will be listening to this podcast as they do a group ride. So what I hope to do is to bring some of your own Olympic stories to life, and I would love, obviously we have several journeys leading up to 3 different Olympic Games, and now our 4th Olympic game, but in different sports, so that's super unique. Can you take us briefly through a timeline of your journey so we can all wrap our arms around how, at the age of 32, you've accomplished so much in the world of sport, where most would just hope to accomplish a chapter of this in a lifetime? Take us through the different disciplines and perhaps the Olympic Games that you've attended, because I think that's really important for people to understand. We talk about alpine skiing, but if you didn't grow up as an alpine skier, like what was your event? I mean, and then you've switched over to another event, you know, cross skiing. You're like, what's that? Unless you've seen it. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, I'd like to say I'm just stubborn. I mean, I set some goals, and I really I really did everything I possibly could to achieve them. But I grew up ski racing, so I think another kind of consistency there was I obviously just really like spandex, because there's a lot of spandex involved in all 3 of those sports. But of course, so I grew up alpine skiing, so wearing that tight spandex suit, going around the gates. There in alpine skiing, there's 4 disciplines. So there's slalom, GS, which is giant slalom, and those are called the technical events. And then the next 2 are super G, which is super giant slalom, and downhill. And those other 2 are what you call the speed events. So I very quickly progressed to becoming a speed skier. You typically specialize in either the speed disciplines or the technical disciplines. So I became a speed skier and started going fast pretty quickly. I worked my way up from the provincial team in British Columbia to the national team and was selected about 4 years out of the 2010 games from a group of, I think we started out for there were like 12 of us across the country, 12 girls in Canada, and then they kind of whittled that team and made some cuts throughout the one summer back in 2007 now, crazy, in the lead up to really try to enhance and prepare us for maybe becoming Olympic hopefuls in, as we remember, our backyard. So the 2010 games were in Vancouver, British Columbia. So not only did I was one of the last to qualify. I was pretty young to qualify for the 2010 games, but I mean, to experience competing in the Olympic Games in your home country, let alone your backyard, growing up in Vancouver, that was an extremely memorable and I mean unbelievable experience that I took in. It was a bit of a roller coaster for sure. Long story short, the women's downhill event, there was really terrible weather. So about two days out, my coaches came to me and said, "We're not gonna run you. There's really bad weather coming in," and they said I'm not going to race due to safety, because in women's downhill events you have training runs to lead up to the race, and we were only allowed one training run, and I actually took a tumble in that one training run, so I actually hadn't been down the entire course, and you get going 120-30 kilometers an hour. I think that's 90-100 miles an hour or something like that. Math is not my strong suit. And so I was pretty devastated, of course, and then the next night they said, okay, we are gonna send you, because they've lowered the start gate, so the start is a bit lower, so we are gonna send you. We think it's a bit safe. Long story short, about 10 minutes before my race, so you can imagine the lead up that one athlete has to competing in their first Olympic Games, they pulled me. So they actually said, and because there were a lot of injuries happening in that moment of time, 5-10 minutes before my forward, I saw this other crazy sport, and I think to myself, I think this has kind of more of me and more of my personality in it, and that sport was ski cross. So where after the 2010 games, I didn't really see where I wanted to go excelling for the next 5-6 years as an athlete, because I was very young at 21 as an alpiner. Experience is a big part of alpine, so you can easily be 35, 35, 36 older as an athlete competing in that sport. So I saw this other sport and I said, I think I want to try this out.
When I watch ski cross on TV, I don't even know. I think that you have to be, do you think you have to be born with this daredevil instinct, or do you think it can be taught?
I kind of believe the first one. I think it has to be a little innate for sure. And I grew up with a lot of boys in my life, and obviously my brothers, and I went to a small school, so I didn't really experience like catty girls at high school, and that's kind of what, like, you're competing against four girls total, so that's like 8 skis and 8 poles and bodies flailing around, and it can get pretty catty out there, that's for sure.
Oh, visually, I can't imagine being in it, but visually, alone, when you're sitting there, watching different sporting events, because you just love watching sports, there's some sports I look at that I basically would tell myself, never in a million years would I insert myself into this environment.
Yeah, I think it's for sure, and I think that's what's one of the most unique things about the Olympic Games, is athletes coming together from different sports and not having the opportunity to do so, because of course their tours take them all around the world and they never cross paths. So a skier versus a bobsledder versus a hockey player, for example, just all kind of putting those athletes in the room and just discussing their own sports. And I think it's so remarkable. You're always in awe of other people's sports and how they accomplish it and how they do it, and the same thing comes right back at you. It's just like, it happens all the time at the Olympic Games, and I absolutely love it. It's just so cool to kind of take in. But back to ski cross, I think kind of really being born with skis on my feet, it's, if you can think about it, it's kind of an extension of your feet. So skiing, like it just comes so naturally to those who grew up doing it, as well as hockey, you know. So there's definitely a component of comfort actually when you are in your skis and kind of flying, you know, 50, 60 feet in the air. In the 2014 Winter Games, I flew 52 meters in the Finnish jump to the Finnish landing in Sochi. So that's like 140 feet or something. It's a bit bizarre to think about. And even now that I'm out of the sport, I can't even really fathom that, but I did it.
I mean, I like how you use the word flew, because that's how I think of it. I'm like, yeah, they're flying in the air. It's not natural for a human being to do this. So we have your accomplishments, obviously 2010 Vancouver, 2014 Sochi. You know, so far, okay, obviously except for the piece that you told me about being pulled 10 minutes before your event in Vancouver, one of the events in Vancouver. It seems pretty smooth sailing for Georgia, but I happen to know a little bit differently. Let's talk about, you know, some of those. I think oftentimes we have to humanize Olympic athletes. You know, I remember when I thought that the Olympics were so far away from even reality because, well, back in the day it'd be like, well, I'm not built like an Olympian. I don't eat like an Olympian. And so we have these perceptions of what you have to be an Olympian. And once I was actually an Olympian, I realized that we're pretty much just ordinary people. And so talk to us about some of the setbacks you had even up to this point. Obviously you got pulled, but you're in ski cross. But tell us about what happens after Sochi. What are some of the setbacks you've kind of been faced with?
Well, jump back about a year before Sochi. Very, very early on into ski cross. I was super excited about the sport. I'm just so in it, and I was so excited to do everything I could to make that Olympic team and to really get that call. I think in one of my, like first or second races that I really took in was down in, I was in Utah, and I unfortunately took a bad tumble and I ended up breaking my neck in 3 different places. I was in the hospital. The surgeon wanted to do surgery on my neck, but my team physio wanted another opinion back in Canada. We flew back, and luckily I didn't need surgery, but I compressed a vertebrae. I broke 2. Thankfully, I had no spinal cord damage. I'm gonna knock on my head and knock on wood here. And that was a very, very scary injury for sure. It was scary for me, but it was also very scary for my mom. I know that sounds a bit funny, but I really can't even imagine like being a mom and being a parent and hearing things like this happen to your child. I'm the cause of a few of those gray hairs. Bless her soul. She's one of my best friends. But hopefully, you know, in a couple of years, I can like really start to give back to my parents even more so, and you know, maybe do some good things there. But I was flown back to Vancouver, and I was put in a full body kind of neck and torso brace for actually only 8 weeks, and I think it was maybe 7 weeks actually, and in the 8th week I was back skiing through a lot of mental visualization, meditation, specifically focusing on healing my vertebrae through my mind. I know it sounds very crazy. I was able to get back on my skis 8 weeks. And granted, I was not doing ski cross, definitely, but I was free skiing up at Whistler, and my physio was astounded with the mobility and the progression that I made, and he said, "You're healed. You're good to go. I don't know how you did this, but you can move your neck. You're fully healed, and be careful out there, but you're healed." And I really, really think the power of the mind is an unbelievable tool and muscle and really something that we can use far more in our lives, and not just as elite athletes. I think these challenging times in the last year, we kind of come back to this, but I think it's a great example of using our mental strength to kind of get us through hard times and specifically injuries.
Yeah, you're talking my language. The power of the mind is I often get asked, how can you teach this? Can you teach the power of the mind? Can you teach the mindset that many of us have? And so I love that you speak to this. I think it's really, really important. So we obviously, incredibly, you make a comeback. And so you said this is 12 months before Sochi that this accident happened?
About a year and a half. Yeah.
A year and a half before Sochi. So, I mean, that's really, that's not, I mean, that sounds like a long time, but it's not. To come back and heal, and not only heal physically, but also mentally, and be prepared to enter yourself back into an event such as ski cross. So you go to Sochi, and yeah, tell me about Sochi.
Sochi was a challenge. I was still fairly new to the sport of ski cross, and what's one of the things that I love so much about the sport is you show up to a race and every race is different than the last. And there could be a feature, a part of ski cross, and the BMX listeners out here can really kind of attest to this, and I think kind of take that in, and even mountain biking really, where you can show up to a race and there's a certain feature that you've actually never seen before. So you have a couple days in the lead up to your race day. I think you have like 2 to 3, and sometimes really 1 day, but depends on the weather. Of course, Mother Nature plays a big role in that sport, of training. So you can have either 1 to 10 training runs on the course, and you really can dial that course in those 10 runs or less. And I showed up to Sochi, and the course was very, very large. As I mentioned, flying that far in the finish jump, there were other very challenging features in the course that I really had never done before. So I was a bit in over my head. Come race day, I was focused, I was confident, and I was, I believed in my ability. You have to be confident on race day, and if there's a little bit of apprehension or I mean, you can be nervous, but I think the word scared should really not come into that sport, or a sport like downhill where the speeds are so high, because that's when injury can happen for sure. But I was confident, I was focused, and I had 2 really great heats, so the round of 32 and the round of 16, and then I was in a tough heat in the quarterfinals, and two athletes make it through, and I wasn't one of them. So I took a bit of a tumble and kind of bruised a little bit of the ego there, I'd say, and I had a little bit of a hip bruise and stuff, but nothing too bad. And your day can be over in a matter of seconds in ski cross. So it just wasn't my day to kind of move on from there. But I mean, an amazing experience nonetheless.
Yeah. So I mean, again, I think that the interesting thing about so far the alpine skiing and obviously the ski cross and your experiences, it takes the talent, it takes the mindset, but it also is different because you're qualifying. You're either qualifying or you're not. It's and there's so often that I think I like to say control your controllables, but you have very few controllables, except for yourself, because when you happen to have other people around you, such as ski cross, you never know what those competitors next to you, what may happen. So 2014 is behind you now. Are you still thinking that you want to continue in sport right away? Do you take a moment? What do you do after this?
I love how you're leading towards this. I saw, so back to my injury, actually, back to the vertebrae injury that I had. I was sitting on the couch, and so this was even before Sochi, but I think maybe a little bit of, I was in a lot of pain, obviously, so not to make a joke about this, but the Vicodin that I was in probably enhanced some of these thoughts going through my mind. But I thought to myself during that injury, funny enough, so I was still new to the sport of ski cross, but I thought to myself, I work so hard as a winter athlete in the summer months, in the off months. Why can't I do this? This spark ignited in my head, and it really wasn't going anywhere. It was the flame was only burning brighter and stronger, and that was the idea of becoming a Summer Olympian. So I actually started, not too many people know this, but I started to, my Summer Olympic journey didn't start in cycling. It started in rowing, actually. So I emailed, like info at Rowing Canada. That's really how it started. And I always tell people, like, it sounds so cliche, but where there's a will, there's a way. And, just get after it. If you want to achieve something, figure out what you have to do, like today, tomorrow, the next week, and kind of wishing and wishy-washy, having the mindset of like, oh, I want to do this, but I don't know how to start. Like, how to kind of start to tackle that goal, shall we say. And that's what I did. I heard back from, funny enough, an athlete that I had met, who was then the coach. He became a coach, and he said, yeah, Georgia, come out next week and we'll kind of put you through some tests on a bike, actually, and in the water. And that was kind of the start of my rowing career. But fast forward to the following summer, so that was a year before 2014. So 2013, I hopped in a rowboat. And another kind of interesting thing just with my kind of career and journey that I've been on is athletes don't really experience. Once you're an Olympian, once you're an elite athlete, you're somewhat the cream of the crop, shall we say, and athletes don't really, at that level, don't really experience vulnerability, I think, too often, or maybe, let's say, not often enough. And I really think having experienced to go to enter two different sports at in my mid-20s really has given me a different perspective, and something that I will take on for the rest of my life, really. And it's a sense of just being humble and taking in and not knowing everything, and that experience of vulnerability. And I definitely experienced that when I started to row, because they were putting me into a single scull, which is extremely tricky and challenging. So it was short-lived, but I have all the respect for rowers. I can't even, it's unbelievable. It's very, very physically demanding and technically demanding as well. So that was short-lived because Rowing Canada, they said, we'd love to invest in you, but we need you 365 days of the year. And I said, thanks, but no thanks. I was a bit kind of taken aback in terms of, I was a bit disheartened. I was a bit sad, just because I put a fair amount of effort into kind of learning as much as I could in the sport, but that spark and that flame, it didn't go away. So fast forward to the summer after Sochi. So now we're February, March, April, May of 2014, and I told myself, I'm going to commit everything I can to this dream and this goal, and I'm going to put skiing aside completely. Whereas the spring and summer before, I was still dabbling, learning how to row and going to ski camps, because we were in the lead up to an Olympic Games. So that makes that made sense, obviously. But the next summer, the Olympics were over, and there were 4 years from then, and the Winter Games, of course. And I told myself, I'm going to put the sport aside, and I'm going to focus everything I possibly can on making this dream a reality. So that's what I did. I again contacted. I kid you not, I contacted info at Cycling Canada, and I think the reason why I chose cycling was, I mean, if you break it down, there's very few sports that you can just start up and have any hope of kind of making it to the top of the world, or the top of the game in your mid-20s. It's not soccer, it's not hockey, it's not super technical sports, shall we say, but rowing, bobsleigh, cycling, certain events are those sports. So cycling it was.
So Georgia, cycling, I mean, there's so many different disciplines in cycling you could have chosen from. I mean, you have track cycling, you have BMX, you have mountain bike. I mean, it seems like BMX would be a lot closer than track. I mean, if you look at ski cross in your background and that adrenaline rush, how did you get introduced to track cycling?
Yeah, it's a funny question, actually. I don't really have the answer for you, but in ski cross and alpine, actually, as one can imagine, your legs and your quads are your very much your dominant, source of strength, shall we say. And we throughout the year we do a lot of bike testing. So like a couple times a year we do bike testing in a lab for both of those sports, for skiing. So my strength and conditioning coach, they kind of kept on always telling me, especially when I was starting to row, they said, I think you should go into cycling. I think you should probably try cycling. Like, your numbers are comparable to like World Cup men's bike tests. And I kind of kept on saying, like, oh, you're just pulling my leg. Like, there's no chance. But I kind of kept on having him say this in the back of my head, and so and funny enough, there was a cyclist, a track cyclist who is since retired. Steph Rorda was on the Canadian track team, so she grew up in Alberta and she actually used to ski race. So I get kind of like known of this, but I had never met her. So that was kind of the connection of just kind of hopping into track and seeing how far I could go. But showing up to a velodrome for the first time, it was definitely daunting and a little scary, but I think having the experience of ski cross going into this new sport, it kind of dimmed that sense of fear, I think, for me. And I was used to traffic, I was used to commotion, and I think that made me more comfortable on the track, really. So competing in team pursuit, having people in front of you, behind you, obviously, as a team, and being close to your teammates. And as we know, those bikes have no brakes, and there's no coasting. It was that sense of what another newbie, shall we say, would kind of experience and feel. I didn't really entering track cycling, and I just wanted to go.
That's great. It sounds like you were, a big contributor to Team Canada for Rio and leading into Rio. And I mean, obviously the speeds aren't even nearly as fast as they do get fast on the track, but not nearly as fast as what you've been with. But also, that team aspect had to have been fun for you. So we head into Rio, and you just fully must have put yourself into the track training, because let's not underestimate, you may have the engine, the heart and lungs to power through this, because naturally your heart and lungs, they don't know any different, like whether you're running or
Exactly.
you're track cycling or whatever that is. But the sport specific, the technique that it takes to nail the team pursuit, it's finesse, it's almost art. So talk about the time that you put into, I mean, how much time did you have to put in to catch up to the teammates who have been on the track riding in circles? I mean, it's not just riding in circles.
As we know. I'll tell you a story. So once I kind of got I got a track bike, I kind of integrated myself into the community of Vancouver. I started training at the local velodrome, which is a very, I mean, they say if you can ride Burnaby smooth, you can ride anything smooth. It's 200 meters, and it is, let's just say, it's a little bumpy. But I started training at Burnaby, and integrated myself into the community, and that was the first sense of actually cycling as a community kind of sport that I really loved. I loved that I was meeting new people, different people from different backgrounds, diversity. I hadn't really found that in skiing. Skiing is, it's a kind of a bougie sport, shall we say. So I really enjoyed that sense of kind of community and cycling right off the bat. And I remember driving to the track one day, and I called the women's team pursuit head coach. Called him up. I said, "Hey Craig, my name's Georgia. I'd like to make your team." And this Craig, he probably thought I was just a crazy girl, and he's like, "Hi Georgia, I've heard of you. I'm gonna kind of cut you short here, and our team is ranked second in the world at the moment. We have just over a year to go till the Olympic Games. We're heading into the Pan Am Games in a month, and we're hoping to win a gold medal at the Pan Am Games. And thanks, but no thanks. Like, there's no chance you're gonna make my team." And he's like, "I'm not trying to cut you down, but there's just no hope." And I remember driving to the track. I had made a connection with a local coach. I had made a connection with a local bike shop. They had given me disc wheels. I was so excited about doing this sport, and I was loving it. I was loving digging myself so deep into training on those days in the track, and learning so much. And I remember I was driving, and I had tears coming down my eyes because this guy was shutting this dream down so quickly. And I remember telling myself, just keep him talking, just keep him talking. And I was like, okay, thanks, like, how's it going, blah, blah. The team's kind of gearing up for Pan Ams, and we kind of keep talking a little bit, and he's like, "You know what, I like your attitude. If you ride an individual pursuit in 3 minutes and 44 seconds, call me back." And I said, thanks, Craig. Thank you. And I hung up the phone, and I just remember like a mix of emotions. I was like crying because I was happy now, and I go to I don't even remember that training session. You know, one could ask, like, did you smash some records, some PBs in the training session? I probably did, because my learning curve was so high. I was just getting better every day. But I remember, so again, where there's a will, there's a way. How do I need to accomplish this is what is like immediately what my mind went to. So I needed to go to a 250-meter velodrome, and that wasn't going to be Milton, because Milton had just been finished, and they were training on there and gearing up for the Pan Am Games. So it wasn't Milton. So the next option was LA. So I packed my bag with multiple bikes and drove myself down to LA. I figured out room and board. I called the local track coach, Travis, who's Canadian, and he said, yeah, no problem. Come join my program. We're 3 times a week on the track from this time, and he was a sprint coach, but he's like, I'll yell out training lap times for you in between those. We know those trackies take a few more rests than they do get on the track. So those sprinters, I'm joking, mind me, that's a joke. So. He said, yeah, come on down. So I packed up my bag, I drove down to LA, and I was training on the track a couple days later, and I was doing this super hard workout 3 times a week. That's all I really knew, and this was going to get me strong for the IP to do an individual pursuit. I mean, as we know, ignorance is bliss, and I didn't know anything about that time. And if you're a new cyclist, that time is actually pretty challenging. For an elite, the world record, as we know, is smashed that by tens of seconds. But for a newbie, 3 minutes and 3-minute 44 IP is pretty tough, actually. So I trained a couple times a week. I was learning a lot, and I got the time. I mean, I called him. I drove up to Vancouver, 20-hour drive. I was like, when should I call him? So I called him and I said, hey, Craig, it's Georgia again. I got the time. And he's like, what? He was a bit shocked. And, from then, I didn't jump through any loopholes to get to his team, but my path was very quick, obviously. He said, okay, what you need to do now is learn bike handling skills. I recommend you getting into as many track events and local track races as you can. Start riding on the road, start racing on the road, doing local criteriums. I was going down to Portland, Seattle, just with kind of a local group of Vancouver cyclists, and I was kind of, I was making good times. Like, I didn't know what I was doing, essentially. I showed up to Canadian Nationals a couple months later, and I was kind of right behind the elite girls. I think people were kind of turning their heads, saying, like, who is this skier? And I remember then having a chat with Craig the next day after Nationals, and I was so nervous. I mean, I'd been to 2 Olympic Games, and I was like super nervous to have just chat with the coach. It was just so funny. And he said, okay, you haven't made my team, you've made the development team, so I'm going to put you through a camp with the development team. We did the road once. I did like a 2-week camp in California. I did a 10-day camp on the track with the development team, and he said after that, okay, you're strong enough, like, you've made my team, but by no means is this me telling you that I'm selecting you for the next World Cup or the Olympic Games at all, let alone world champs coming up as well. And at this point in my career, I was really kind of balancing 2 national sport organizations. Cycling Canada was telling Ski Cross Canada she should probably continue her sport, because there's really no hope that she's going to make the Olympic team. And Ski Cross Canada, under the governing body of Alpine Canada, they were telling me, we want you back. Like, you're not following our program. So in Canada, Olympic athletes are given a stipend for living expenses. It's called carding money. And for 8 months, I wasn't receiving my carding money. Like, they just weren't giving it to me, because I wasn't technically following the skiing protocol. So I kind of understand, but I was like, okay, like, it is what it is. I'm gonna keep doing this. Like, people were telling me no, and at the bottom, I think at the bottom line is, where, again, if you believe in something, it doesn't really matter what other people say. If you truly believe in making that goal a reality, for sure you need a community behind you, and you need support, most definitely. But at the end of the day, who has to believe in your goal? It's you. You have to believe in it. And I truly believed in it. And I said, thanks, but no thanks, and I'm going to keep doing this. So by then, that moment of making the elite team was exciting, but it was also very scary for me because it was now up November, and I hadn't skied in many months, and I was completely kind of putting my head into the ground in terms of doing any success on the World Cup circuit if I were to go back to ski cross at that point. So I made a tough decision, and I said, I'm going for this. I'm doing it. So I made the elite team, the Team Pursuit elite team. The women's track Team Pursuit team, and back to that sense of vulnerability. I remember like my first training session with these girls. And it was tough. They they really, and understandably so, they were 5-6 months away from the games, and they were like, who is this girl joining our program, and what is she doing here? And back to you when you spoke about how Team Pursuit is this it's this art, it's this sense of flow, it totally is that, but let's just say I did not have that when I first started. Yeah, I took everything in. I say I was a sponge. I really took every possible feedback I could from these girls, and they taught me everything. I mean, the coach was great, and the coach is definitely, he runs the program, he runs the session, he runs the environment, but you learn from your teammates in that sport because they feel you, they feel every pedal stroke that you are doing. They're behind you, they're in front of you. Nothing is in the shadows in that sport, and everything is exposed. And your teammates, I know when my one teammate is or when any one of my teammates is a little bit tired because their hips move slightly a different way, or their pedal stroke is slightly off. And not to say, I just know that that's when they're tired, and I know that maybe they might do half a lap less, so it's your, that innate sense of taking on another lap if you have it, or these little nuances in the sport. I didn't have that when I first started, so I can only imagine, a newbie coming into our sport now, or for example, a couple months prior to the games, it would have been really challenging for my teammates.
Yeah, so you get through this, you're just a fighter, and everything you say up to this point, you fight and you never give up, and it's so important. So you move forward, you're on this team, you are in Rio, and now you're a bronze medalist. I mean, this is unbelievable where, you look at a sport and you grew up doing from probably age 2, alpine skiing, part of a family tradition that became your blood is like competitive. Now you're in a sport that you fought for to get in. You're in and you medal. Bronze medalist, you come out of Rio. Are you done yet?
No, most definitely not. I think kind of just back a little bit to kind of making the team. I did one World Cup with Craig, with the girls. I was selected to one World Cup. I was then selected to one World Championships event in London. So that was my second race ever. And my third race of Team Pursuit ever was the Rio Games. It was exciting. It was nerve-wracking, and I think though going into Rio, I actually had this other sense of experience that some of my teammates didn't have. So that was kind of unique because I had an Olympic experience, and that Olympic, as you know, this we like to say it's just any other event, but it's not. It's definitely not. And we trained 4 years to the lead up, or 5 now, to the lead up to Olympic Games. So I had this different sense of experience that I definitely brought into the team. I was a bit of a deer in the headlights into our sport, shall we say, but I learned enough in those 5 days of getting on the track before Rio to put down 3 solid rides, and yeah, we came home away with the bronze, and it was one of the most just an unbelievable experience crossing that finish line with my teammates. We spoke about being an individual sport and then transferring to a team sport. I feel like I'm just a bit of a chameleon, and I love both aspects equally. They're so different, but there's something so special about competing and winning with the team. You can't do that sport as an individual, and it was so amazing to cross that line with my teammates, knowing that we had done it together, and that we were bringing home Canada an Olympic medal. I just didn't really think it was going to happen, and I was part of that team. It was exciting. So after Rio, I was always planning on getting back on my skis and shooting for Pyeongchang, the next Winter Olympics. As you know, the Winter Games, from the summer to the winter is only a year and a half, versus winter to summer is 2.5, just because of when the Olympics are in our calendar year. So in August of 2016, right after Rio, I was heading into an Olympic qualifying season on my skis, and I needed to be able to perform to qualify for the games in 3 months away after August, because our season starts in December, and or however many months that is, a couple, and I needed to get back on my skis quickly and transform my body back into a ski racer. So I needed to do upper body exercises, I needed to do plyometrics, I needed to start moving my feet laterally, I needed to start getting impact into my feet, as cycling is a non-impact sport, and I had really only been on my bike for the last year and a half to 2 years. So I transferred back too quickly, in the sense that I didn't really take in the Olympic kind of high, and what comes down with that, which is a bit of a low, as we all know. At the same time, I switched back to my sport so quickly that it was a bit of it. I was just kind of all over the place. I was trying to take in what I had just accomplished, but at the same time, kind of put it aside and focus on something else because I needed to. And I'm a very kind of goal-oriented athlete, if you can't tell, but and I'm a bit black and white in the sense of I know what I need to accomplish to achieve success. So if I don't do X, Y, and Z, I know I'm not going to achieve what I want to achieve. And if I do, then there's a really good chance that I will. So I knew I was really struggling, because in the early winter and when the season started in ski cross, I knew I hadn't done what I needed to do to be a World Cup winning skier. And even though I'd accomplished something really cool on the bike, I hadn't done what I needed to do to be an Olympic skier. So that was challenging, and I went back to the mental strength. I worked with a sports psychologist, my team sports psych, and we really focused on, I mean, it's very cliche, but we just really focused on the like process goals, and what was I going to accomplish today. You know, was I going to technically achieve what I wanted to achieve out of the start gate, or was I going to get my mind a bit overanalyzed and just focus on winning, shall we say? So we really focused on process goals, and slowly I started to achieve, with some frustration and a couple little tumbles at the early part of the season, I started to achieve success, and I had one of my most successul, by the end of the season, one of my most successful seasons. And then we were heading into the Olympic year the next year, and I just kind of built off that high from the previous season. And 3 weeks before the Pyeongchang Games, I was ranked 4th in the world in ski cross, and the last World Cup before the Games, I pretty much had my ticket booked. I mean, I was going. The team was about to be announced like the next day, and I took a tumble in one of the last events, and broke both my legs and tore every ligament in my left knee.
You know, I don't know even. I am, like I said when I introduced you, Georgia. Your career and your journeys are what most people hope to accomplish, and they hope to accomplish a chapter of this. And so it's almost like we're reading this story where it's like, we're driven, we're going after this, we have a setback, we're driven, we're going after this, we have a setback. You have walls coming up, I mean, left and right. It's like, let me put another wall. And so it's almost like, hey, they say don't poke the sleeping bear. They say,
I like that.
obviously if that challenge wouldn't have happened, maybe you wouldn't have gone forward. There's something to putting fuel on the fire, and it's a little bit scary. It's like, don't challenge Georgia because she's probably going to prove you wrong. And that's like this competitive, internal competitiveness that athletes have at your level. So you have this injury 3 weeks before the Olympic Games, and you're once again have a setback. I mean, you think about it, that was in 2018, correct?
Yes.
Right? And so we're now, I mean, who breaks both their legs, has surgery in 2018, and then, 2020, we're in the same pattern. The pattern is sort of like this on repeat. We have this time period again, you're under pressure, and COVID hits. So did you, after your ski injury, I mean, obviously you're on the pathway to go compete in cycling again with Team Canada in the pursuit. So you come out of this awful injury and you're back on the bike. Is this because of rehab?
I was always planning on retiring from ski racing after Tokyo and getting back on my bike, after Pyeongchang and getting back on my bike for Tokyo. So it's so funny that you say that, like, don't poke a sleeping bear, and I really, you're right, because if I didn't have Tokyo to look forward to and to turn my body back into a beast, shall we say, and just like a machine, I don't believe I would have been able to get through that rehab. I had 4 leg surgeries in a year, and within 1 year I was back on the World Cup team racing in the World Cup in New Zealand. I mean, I went from learning how to walk again, learning how to get my foot around a pedal. I mean, at first I wasn't even able to get my foot around the pedal because I had so much scar tissue in my knee. I remember when the computer of the bike at the gym lit up because my cadence was like 5 or 6. The cadence, if your cadence is like 1 or 2, the computer on a train, the computer at the bike on a gym doesn't even lit up, like come to light. Well, that was like a big day for me when I got my foot around the pedal enough and fast enough to see like 3 watts, let alone, 500 watts. It was, I mean, to kind of, it's hard to kind of dissect that whole injury, but it was, again, I go back to my mental strength. I go back to the daily tasks that I needed to work on. And I really, I was excited because I was achieving little goals every day in my rehab. And that is what kept me going. And also this end goal of seeing Tokyo and competing back on my bike with my teammates, that was the light at the end of the tunnel for me. And again, achieving those daily goals and really overcoming little hurdles day after day after day. I mean, I was in rehab for 5-6 hours a day, in getting massages and doing tiny little exercises and going back to and getting really painful physio down on my legs. And yeah, it was all encompassing. It was my life. I lived and breathed my rehab, and within a year I was back on my bike, definitely not to my fullest strength, but back on my bike racing in World Cup.
It's an unbelievable story, Georgia, and I appreciate you sharing it with us. Many would say that you have to specialize in one thing to make it to the top. However, I think you've proved the world differently. I think that you've over and over have said that mindset has taken you to another place. And so with that, I want to bring it back a little bit about this amazing Olympic virtual series, and with your setbacks and with the recent virtual cycling platform that we've had the opportunity to be part of, how has this helped you in rehabilitation? Have you been involved in the virtual cycling platform outside of this series? Have you used it for your training? I know that you come from a colder environment, being up in Canada. You mentioned it snows and rains. How have you used this virtual cycling platform?
Yeah, when COVID hit, it was still March of last year, and it was still cold in Alberta, and I got onto the Zwift platform, and it really that has done wonders to my training. I've been amazed at how much I've been able to accomplish in the last year and a half. My teammates and I we've really been individual athletes because we haven't seen each other very much in the last year and a half. There's been very little racing, if not any, and I really took up using a platform of virtual cycling and Zwift, and I can only attest good things to the platform. I mean, it just kind of brings another sense of competitiveness, I think, to me and my training. It holds me accountable. If you sign up for a ride and it's 50K or 100K or whatever it is, like, I'm not going to get off my bike until that's done. That's for darn sure. If I do workouts on it, I'm going to try my absolute hardest to achieve what that screen tells me to do. And in a race, and if it says, you're closing, more watts, or if it says close the gap, I'm going to darn well close that gap. I think it just brings this competitiveness out in me that is really hard to find for me if I just hop on a trainer and watch sports. That was like my go-to before. I'd watch sports, I'd listen to some pump up music, and I would try to get my training done. And I really thought I was like good at it until I hopped on to this new sense, this new form, this like new, it just kind of gave me another whole world of competitiveness. And it's done, I use it all the time, and it's really, really amazing for my training.
Well, I can tell everyone right now, watch out, because Georgia's just mentioned the competitiveness on virtual cycling platforms, and I know a little bit that she has been involved in the Premier League, the Tour de France. She went to the World Championships, the first World Championships that was virtual cycling. And so we never know what's next with Georgia. Georgia, I want to thank you for joining us today and being part of the Olympic Virtual Series. This is an amazing opportunity for not only athletes, but all of us ordinary people out there. Again, thanks for joining, and I hope that we all get an opportunity to ride with you in June.
I can't wait. I can't wait to share my story and hopefully have some chit-chats, and thank you so much.